Good morning.
Good morning.
Jean Marie Lehtinen.
Good morning.
And as I like to say to everyone, thank you very much for your willingness to share your story, because I can't get anyone else to do your story.
I'm happy to do it.
It's yours, and you know what to say and what not to say about who you are. So
Okay.
thank you very much. So let's just, you began your journey in Seattle, Washington. So
I did.
tell us about your upbringing, your family, your schooling, siblings.
Okay. I was born in Seattle General Hospital, and I was my mother's first cesarean section because she had thrown a rock and she started to go into labor, so she had to go in early. So I was a preemie for a while. And my family, I grew up mainly in Seattle, but we lived in about 5 different places. And when I was born, we lived on East 88th in Seattle, which is a little town at that time. And I have 3 older siblings, my sister Jean, my brother Bill, and my brother Phil, and then myself. And there were 7 of us, so there are 3 younger ones. And then Mom and Dad adopted 2 more children.
Wow.
And one of them was the last 3.5-year-old boy who was left in the orphanage that was closing in Seattle. It was one of Mother Cabrini's orphanages, and it was closing, and he was the only one left.
Oh my.
And nobody wanted him. The caseworker said nobody wanted him because he was not real sharp. So Mom said of course she would take him. And so she brought him home. He was 3.5. He had never learned to really eat appropriately because they just fed him. And he ate and ate until they came and took the food away. So he was eating away, and Mom was saying, are you full yet? So anyway, he was always kind of slow, but he eventually, when he grew up, he joined the Marines. Now, how the Marines ever got a hold of him, I don't know. And then his responsibility was washing tires on the Jeeps. So he came home, and he couldn't find what he was looking for, and he committed suicide.
Oh,
so he was about 15 or 16 years old. Well, he was older than that because he had served in Vietnam. And when I was little, we lived on a farm, and I can remember the first farm that I remember was in Bremerton, and Daddy had responsibility for milking cows. It was a dairy farm. So I can remember as a kid milking a cow and squeezing the teat into the cat's mouth. We always had lots of fun doing that. And we moved to Rainier Valley, where I went to St. Edward's School from 1st grade to the beginning of 4th grade. And then we moved again to Shoreline, which is out north of Seattle. And we lived there kind of permanently. Dad built a house, and all of us were there. And that's where I did enter. Well, I did enter from there eventually. And my niece now owns the house, and so she's living there. So my childhood was always, we lived in 5 different places, and each place had something new and exciting, but it was hard leaving friends. And school, I went to 4 or 5 different schools. As we moved, we would join the next Catholic school. So I went to quite a few. I met our sisters when I was out in Shoreline area, which is north of Seattle. And we had catechism. The church wasn't built yet, so we had catechism in the public school gymnasium. And I used to go up and help her with catechism, and that was Sister Estelle. And I really enjoyed working with her. And over the years that I worked there, I mean, I probably was 2 years, we got to know each other. And she was the one that really inspired my vocation. We used to talk a lot and visit, and one time she asked me if I ever thought about religious life, and I said, I guess. You know, in 7th grade they always had vocation kinds of things, at least in our schools. And so I said, well, kind of. So the next thing I know, it was the same day, she took me out to visit Mother Frances out at the Mother House at Rosary Heights. And Mother Frances asked, so you want to enter? And I said, I guess.
Oh my. Now, this is the Edmonds Dominicans.
The Edmonds Dominicans. So within the year, I had been dating a sailor, which was a great thing in the Northwest when you could find a sailor who was Catholic. And so we had dated for, probably less than a year. But I had to, kind of make a decision if I wanted to enter the convent or marry Edward.
Because you couldn't take him with you.
No. So I talked to Estelle kind of about it, and she's kind of said the same thing, that, it's either or. And I says, So I wrote my Dear John letter to Edward and told him, that I was entering the convent. And he wrote back and he says, I thought so. So I think I had a vocation.
Yeah.
And I entered in 1959. Mm-hmm. I went to Rosary Heights and was in the novitiate where there was 2 houses. One small house, you had to go through a little walkway to get to the other house through the woods. And that's where I had my postulancy. There were 3 of us that entered, and one left in April, and the other one left in June. So that left me. And so I thought, well, and I didn't have a lot to do by myself. And my mom and dad for Christmas gave me roller skates, the clamp-on kinds. And I said, but Dad, there's no place to roller skate here. So he built me a roller rink.
Oh my.
It was turned out to be a tennis court, and a tennis court and a basketball court. But we took the divider down, and I would go down there and skate by the hour. And I would go backwards and frontwards and jump and leap and do all these things. And all the sisters up in the Mother House were watching me out the window, and I never knew it. So that kind of saved my vocation, that I had something to do. And then when I went to the novitiate, Michelle Kopp was ahead of me. And when she entered, there were 7. And by the time she got through profession, she was the only one. So Michelle and I became really good friends, and we did lots of good things together. Mm-hmm. And then she moved on, and then I eventually moved on. My first ministry, I went to Sister Formation. Sister Formation College had just been opened, and Michelle and I were in the first classes. Oh. And we had a wonderful education. It was very...
Now explain what Sister Formation is.
The 5 religious communities in the Northwest needed to do something about how to train people, and in a different way. It was just after the Vatican II. Mm-hmm. And so they got together and formed an agreement and called Sister Formation. It came from a different place, but it was our sisters in the community, the 5 surrounding communities.
It's kind of like what we have in St. Louis right now.
Yes.
Yeah, the intercommunity.
Yeah. And it was at Providence Heights, which was about an hour and a half away. And so our community got a Greenbrier, which was a little van. And every day we'd get in the van, drive for an hour through the countryside and go to school. It was wonderful. And it was wonderful meeting all the sisters, of course, there. And I would say the Sister Formation Program was really successful with us because we had a really wide-ranging agenda, studies. So after I graduated, my first assignment was in St. Benedict's in Seattle with Mary White was there at the time. And we used to go, her father grew blueberries, so we would go blueberry
So you had,
picking.
when you said you graduated, you mean you made profession at that time?
No, I'd already made profession.
Okay.
I made profession in 63.
Okay.
65 was final profession. So this was in the early 70s. And we would go over to her father he grew blueberries. So we'd go over and pick blueberries, and she made great blueberry pies. And I was there for about 3 years teaching the 5th and 6th grade. And I next was sent to Hoquiam, which is a little town on the river down south, and I taught 1st and 2nd grade there too. And so I taught about 7 different places. And after that, I was asked, Mary White and I were sitting at my parents' fireplace one Christmas, and we were just talking about the community, and we were starting to have older sisters who needed some help. So we talked, and I said, well, somebody should do something. And Mary says, well, why don't you? So I went out to the general council, and I presented a proposal to work with the older sisters. So that was my job for the next 3 years. I prepared programs for them. I took them on trips, and we spent time at the ocean and just did fun things, and also talked a lot about retirement and some of the things. I had gone to gerontology school for 2 or 3 weeks in San Diego, so I knew everything about gerontology.
Good.
Yes. So that was a really life-giving ministry, and I did that for a number of years. And my first out-of-town ministry was in Denver. I asked Mother Aquinas, Sister Catherine Logan, if I could go to Denver because a sister there called me and asked if I would be interested in a position with the Religious Education Office. So I asked her, and she said, yes. And I says, aren't you excited about it? And she said, well, so many sisters have gone to California and never come back. And I says, but that's not my intention. And she said, I have heard that too. So anyway, I went off to Denver, and I did not leave the community. I worked at St. Thomas Seminary with the deacons, with the deacon program, and did their field education placements and monitored their suitability for priesthood, and had to turn one down. And he was very angry, and he said that, he'd wait until I left and ask the next person. I lived in Toledo, Ohio with Rosemary Abramovich and Joyce Lavoie. We lived there.
And you came,
and I was working with the deacons at that time.
At that time, okay.
So
in the diocese?
In the diocese. And I used to bring the deacons up to Adrian for things.
So you've been on our grounds in our area for quite a while. Now, a couple other interesting, you're part of the transfer or the merger that we had. How was that for you with the Edmonds?
Well, I was on the committee, the transition committee, and I was thrilled. We had a general meeting, we talked about it, and there were probably, maybe less than 10 who were kind of not in favor. But I worked on the committee, and I was thrilled to join with the Adrians. I had known a few of the Adrians because I had visited here.
And you were close by, too, for a while.
Yeah. So I have found it a wonderful experience, and I was really happy to come. And I don't know how long after that that was 2003, and I didn't come here until later. But I visited back and forth. So I knew the place in a lot of ways. I was living in retirement when I was at Assumption Convent just recently in September, and I said, there's not much to do here, and I tried a few things, but it wasn't anything very life-giving. So I decided I'd come to Adrian, and that was September of this year. And so I said my goodbyes and had a big party and said goodbye and arrived in Adrian on September 18th.
But before that, didn't you have some other interesting ministerial experiences?
Well, one of the most exciting one was Prince George, British Columbia.
Right.
Yes, that was really fun.
And you went there at the invitation of Donna, right?
Donna Markin knew the bishop up there, and he wanted some sisters. So again, Terry Ann said one day out at site of chapel, she said, Jean Marie, would you be interested in going to on a mission? I said, of course. So I went to Prince George, and I loved every minute of it. I ran a retreat house, and I enjoyed that, and that's where I had the women. Every week we had, or every couple of weeks we had meetings with the women in the area, and it wasn't for instruction. I wasn't teaching them anything. I said, I want you to talk about spirituality in your relationship to God. And it shifted people's ideas about, the doctrine of the church is fine, but there's something deep that they needed to express in their relationship to God. So we had wonderful conversations, and the women were really pleased with how things went. And that was the first time I used the blessings, was in Prince
You were
George.
telling me about that yesterday. Explain it, what you mean by the blessings.
The blessings I received, and I don't remember where I got them. I know the sister who, I don't know her, but I know who she is, that wrote them. There are 55 different blessings of good health, wellness, all kinds of things, or your thoughts about God. And so I decided this past Thanksgiving to share those. So I made copies of it, and I made over 400 rolled scrolls to pass out to the women, to the sisters. And I've gotten really wonderful feedback from, it's just right, it's just what I needed to hear. And that was my experience with the women in Prince George and other places where I
So what did
it.
a couple of these blessings say?
Well, they're kind of long, but it was mainly trust in God.
Okay, so different spiritual...
different spiritual messages,
Good. Okay.
Yeah, they're very beautiful.
And you got the name Blessings by...
I just said they were blessings.
Oh, very good.
I just called them blessings. And the sisters were really excited. I still get feedback saying, you don't remember that blessing? I said,
oh, that's nice. You've touched their lives.
Yes.
What do you do for fun?
Well, fun is kind of funny. I love to walk. And I do that almost every day I can get out. And I love long walks, and I love them through the woods. I used to, in Denver, I would go out through the wilderness and just walk for hours. And I just enjoy that a lot. I'm not a movie goer. Once in a while I'll go to a concert or something like that, that kind of thing. And I don't watch very much TV. I just am not that interested in a lot of things.
What are you reading right now?
I'm reading, I have meditation books that I read, and then I'm reading a novel, and I can't remember the name of it.
But you're enjoying it?
Oh, yeah. I love novels. I've read lots of novels. So, I just keep, sometimes it's just peaceful.
That's good. As you look back on your life, and I think we do as we move along the timeline, is there an experience that was the most challenging for you? There probably were a few.
Oh, yes.
But maybe one, and what did you learn about yourself through that experience?
I was working at Denver with a sister in the religious education office, and we were not a good match as partners. And a bishop took her place when she left. A bishop. Guess he was out of work. No, he was a priest. He wasn't a bishop. And he was not easy to work with, and it was his way or no way, and it wasn't my style. So that the hardest part was saying I was going to resign. And resignation to me wasn't very easy.
Right.
Because I loved the work, but I knew that I was getting angry inside and that I was getting upset, and it was like, this is not good for me. So I resigned, and the world did not fall apart.
Right.
So that's
that was a healthy decision.
Yes. I mean, I had to do, I couldn't take it anymore.
I often think of decisions like that. They're the best thing for the common good of everybody, that you and the other person and the environment in which you minister.
And I never worried about what was coming next. It was never a worry. I always can find something, or I get a call out of the blue, or it's just happened that way.
Your family, are you going to get back there to see your family at all? Or?
Well, I won't until probably spring.
Okay.
But I had a going away party, and there were 40 nieces and nephews and
nice.
brothers and sisters there, and so it was really lots of fun.
Well, this is a good place for them to come and visit if they've not been here.
I know.
Yeah.
And one of my nephews says, well, I'll be coming out to see you.
Good.
And my oldest brother, Bill, and his wife, Lolly, will probably come out. He just had serious heart surgery. He's had heart problems for a long time. And he seems to be doing really well, so I think he can come.
Jean Marie, how would you like to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered as a person who was content and friendly, and that I had made a difference in their lives.
Wonderful.
And I try to greet everybody. Can't quite do it by name, but
well, it'll come.
I know.
Get those name tags on. As much as we hate them, they're very helpful.
It is.
Anything else that I didn't ask or that you wish you could say to us?
Well, I've enjoyed this conversation.
Good.
And I just look forward to the future. I don't long for death, but I know that that's coming into my future. And as I meet the sisters who are near death, it's just a joy to see their joy. And I hope that that's the way my life ends, as in joy.
Good. Well, thank you very much for your quick response to the invitation and encourage others.
I will.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jean Marie, for
Thank you.
Being part of that committee with the merger, and then saying yes to the invitation to go up to British Columbia. All of those are big challenges in your lifetime, and you seem to have weathered the change as well. So thank you very much, and good luck as you continue the journey.
Thank you.